There are 10 players you'll regret not at least trying to trade for before week 6, because if you wait any longer, it may be too late. But if this is your first time here, I'm Joe. I've helped thousands of people just like you win their fantasy leagues over the last decade, and I plan to do the same for you in this video. But I start off every video with some urgent fantasy football news, and I answer some timely Q&A. Then we get into today's one key topic, so feel free to skip ahead, but let's get right into it. News-wise, the biggest thing to catch you guys up on is the Bengals are trading for Joe Flacco. They're sending a fifth to Cleveland for Flacco and a 2026 sixth. It seems like they've just seen enough with Jake Browning at this point, so he's expected to stabilize the offense. And I think in general, though, it doesn't necessarily just fix the Bengals' issues up front. I think fantasy-wise, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, a bit more of a floor. I don't think it's a breakout, but at least a pulse for fantasy managers still holding on. That's obviously positive. On the negative side, the Jaguars are placing Brenton Strange on IR. He's been pretty good this year. He's going to be going to the IR with a hip injury, so he's going to miss at least 4 games. I don't necessarily think Hunter Long behind him is going to be a priority add, more of just a monitor situation than a must add here. In terms of the Steelers, and we've kind of been monitoring as well to see what was going on with Jaylen Warren. It looks like he is expected to play in week 6. That knee injury never seemed too serious, so that's not a huge surprise. But he's looked good in early week practice. So with him likely back, he's going to resume that role. Kenneth Gainwell likely going to see fewer touches than he did before the bye week. Cardinals are fining their head coach $100,000 for that sideline altercation with Amari DeMercado. You guys know what happened at this point. Basically, the league isn't adding any additional punishment there. Just another reminder that frustration is starting to boil over in Arizona. The Chargers are signing Naheem Hines to the practice squad after working him out today. Really just a little added depth here with Amari and Hampton sidelined. This backfield still wide open. I wouldn't rule out another trade as well. Maybe Alvin Kamara. That'd be fun. But I think Amari and Hampton still is going to resume this role after he comes back from this injury, but it's going to be a few weeks, obviously. Still going to be a few weeks for Lamar Jackson as well. Uphill battle to play in week 6 against the Rams. We basically knew this. They're probably going to hold him back until after the Ravens bye. So going to be a couple more weeks there for Lamar. And this one, I guess, is also relevant. And you like to see this type of stuff for someone like Travis Hunter. He's going to be seeing more downfield opportunities in the coming weeks. So it seems like that has been unlocked a little bit. Obviously, that win over the Chiefs was huge. He made a couple big plays, one in particular. And I think that he's going to see more of those type of targets down the field going forward, which is positive news for sure. Saquon Barkley was limited with a knee injury, and I don't think this is going to be a huge deal. It looks like he gets the DNP on Monday, was limited on Tuesday, but I think this is pretty minor, and we shouldn't have any issues with him suiting up on Thursday night. But quick Saquon recap there. All right, before we get into Q&A, just a reminder that the next 2 videos, I'm actually going to be adding them this week. I'm going to plow through all of my rest of season rankings questions, trade questions, and start sits for week 6. So subscribe, drop your questions below this video now, because the majority of them that I'm going to go over in that video are going to be the ones directly below this video. So kind of an expanded segment. I know we do this pretty much every video as well, answering you guys' questions, but it seems to be useful. So I'm going to do an expanded version of that tomorrow. So when you see this, if you got some questions, drop them in now. Let's jump into today's, though. So the first question, my only running back that I have that produces is Scadaboo, and I have a good wide receiver core. Should I trade Jamar Chase for Alvin Kamara and Jordan Mason? So Jamar Chase obviously getting a little bit of a bump, like I said earlier, with Flacco coming in here, but do we want to be trading for him in this scenario? I still think that for me, or I guess do we want to be trading him away in this scenario? If you're just getting Alvin Kamara and Jordan Mason, I still pretty dramatically want Jamar Chase on my team. I still want that ceiling, though. While I like the idea, even if you have a good wide receiver core, I'm not giving away an alpha like Jamar Chase. Depends on your record, I suppose. If you are in dire need of running backs, it's like relatively close, I guess, from a value perspective in this 2-for-1. I still prefer the Jamar Chase side personally. I'm 0-5 in a 12-man league. I traded away Jefferson for London. In my eyes, I couldn't afford to lose, and London seems to have the better situation. Was this a bad trade on my end? Yeah, just looking at these guys, I do have Jefferson ahead in my rest of season rankings. I think this kind of is more of like a macro question. So if you're 0-5, I don't necessarily like the idea of just going off of a single stud to another one player. I would rather try and do like a 2-for-1 trade. So like flipping Jefferson for like 2 consistent starters. I think that's kind of how struggling teams can climb back. The depth is really what wins weeks. And I think if you're in the other side of that situation, trying to give away some depth to upgrade your studs is kind of the approach that I've always gone with. So hopefully that helps. What do you think about trading away Michael Carter for Juwan Jennings or Jacoby Myers? Sitting 4-1, all three of my players would probably be my flex in the near future. Yeah, this one's interesting. I think if I was to order those three players, so Michael Carter, Juwan Jennings, Jacoby Myers, I would probably go Jacoby, Juwan, Michael Carter. So Jacoby would be my target. And yeah, if it's a solid upgrade and you're 4-1, that's a nice low risk, kind of small edge move that you can do, turning like a fringe running back into a reliable flex. I think that's totally a good move. Next one. I don't know if I can continue to hold Tet. I'm wanting to pair him with KW third for a tier up at wide receiver or to a top 20. So what are some good targets in your opinion that are realistic? I like these kind of questions because it's like, who can I get in this range? Sometimes if you're sending out a lot of trade requests, you need to have like a few guys to target, right? So I like this question a lot. So if you're set on packaging Tet McMillan and Kenneth Walker for one player, I think you have a decent amount of value there, honestly. So I think you can go pretty high. The highest end of this, I think, is probably like the Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson tier. But the mid-range of that, and probably put Jackson Smith-Njigba up there in that top tier as well. If you can't get one of those three, I think you might be able to get like a Nico Collins or Drake London in a 2-for-1 for something like that. So Drake London, I think it's like a small downgrade value-wise, but if you really are just trying to improve your wide receiver, whatever that is, your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and a 2-for-1, I think those would be like the 5 guys in my rankings that stand out from a value perspective. So if I was to rank them, it would be like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, Drake London in that order. So I think that's kind of the best realistic tier up wide receiver to aim for with Tet and with Kenneth Walker. Hopefully that's helpful. What else we got here? I don't know if I can continue to hold Tet. We just got that one. My running back room has been getting carried by James Cook. I have Pollard and Tracy as my running back 2 and 3. I would like to trade Pollard and T. Higgins. What running back could I possibly get for those two? Yeah, so it's kind of similar question. So if you're packaging Tony Pollard and T. Higgins together, just the value in general that you get cumulatively between those guys is probably like a Derrick Henry, who we're going to talk about on the high end. We'll talk about him later in this video. I think you could probably get a guy like Javonte Williams or Bucky Irving in a 2-for-1 for those guys. Maybe Breece Hall, something like that. Those would be the 4 targets I would have as like the most realistic kind of tier up situation. Henry, Javonte, Breece Hall, Bucky Irving. I'll say this too. I was dead wrong about Javonte Williams early in the draft season in general. He wasn't one of my targets. He's looked great. I think it's one of those situations going forward on how we like correct this. It's players that are coming off of like these knee injuries. Sometimes it takes them a year to kind of get their feet back under them and get that explosiveness back. So 2 years removed from like that really bad injury, coming to a completely new situation, he's looked explosive. He's looked great. So yeah, I guess taking the L on Javonte Williams is something that I should probably do publicly. So there you go. I was dead wrong. What else we got here? Should I trade Devontae Adams and Kittle for Sutton? I prefer Devontae Adams and Kittle. Yeah, by a pretty decent margin. I'm somewhat confused by this because I prefer Adams to Courtland Sutton as well, even taking George Kittle out of it. George Kittle and Courtland Sutton are closer to a 1v1. That would probably be Sutton for me. But yeah, if it's both of them together, Devontae Adams and Kittle side, pretty big win there. Keenan Allen versus Jaylen Waddle. Rest of season, I would rather have Jaylen Waddle by a lot. Yeah, I think that people probably don't realize how good Waddle is, and we got a little bit of a glimpse of it last week, obviously. But without Tyreek, he's in a really great spot, obviously. So if you can get Jaylen Waddle for Keenan Allen, that is a deal that I would absolutely make. Josh Jacobs and Tet McMillan, a lot of Tet questions for CMC and Keon Coleman. Yeah, this is a good one. So this is one of those trades that I think could potentially help both sides. So if you're just trying to upgrade your studs, trading Josh Jacobs and Tet McMillan, if your depth can handle it, just to get, Keon Coleman's a throw-in, just to get CMC, essentially, I would probably do that. If you're a team that is just kind of middling or don't have a ton of wins, I think I would keep Jacobs and Tet if you don't have the depth, essentially. Because I think the value is relatively similar, but if you can afford to give up a good amount of depth for Christian McCaffrey and you're a 4-1 team, something like that, I think it's a near even trade by value, but it basically depends on your record, if that makes sense. I sat BTJ due to bad weather forecasts. Yeah, we talk about this a lot in DFS. I do a live stream on Sunday mornings talking to the DraftKings and FanDuel slate. We don't really care about rain. We don't really care about weather in general. We care the most about wind. So going forward, what I would do is if you're considering sitting a guy based on weather, I would make sure you're checking wind. 15 mile per hour plus is kind of that threshold where it really starts to affect these offenses in a negative way. So going forward, just wanted to flag that. I care more about wind than rain. I care more about wind than snow as well. Again, drop your questions below if you want to get in on the deeper dive that I'm going to be doing the next 2 days. But if you want more direct access to me, it's always going to be the Fantasy Accelerator, my premium membership community. There's a link in the description for that. Also, my top 150 rankings are completely free at top150free.com. This is what I'm using to set my lineups. Just throw your email in there and you can get that as well. All right, getting into today's one key topic, 10 players that are about to explode in fantasy football, guys that we want to be trading for now. I got 5 running backs for you and I have 5 wide receivers for you. But let's start with the guy on the thumbnail in Derrick Henry. This was an interesting one, right? Because this offense has been really struggling without Lamar Jackson. We kind of knew that would happen. Also, the biggest difference this year is how poor their defense has been. So they're going to be behind in some games. So in particular, last year, what we really got from Derrick Henry was these good game script usage moments, but we also got a lot of touchdowns. So right now, we're looking for a few things. One of them is, are we still seeing efficiency? So he's the RB23 overall, but he still has pretty elite per touch juice, I would call it. So through week 5, just the RB23, only 21st in carries, 50th in targets, but 27th in fantasy points per game. So the box score volume has been a little bit capped, but the efficiency has been popping anyways. He's 11th in true yards per carry, 16th in yards per touch. But when touches kind of rebound, I actually think that the points will be following. So he seems like a decent buy low to me at this point. He's been held below 50 rushing yards in 4 or 5 games, which is exactly why he's the guy that you can trade for right now. So he's also been scoring through some of the chaos, which is a positive signal. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you guys. I'm trying to remember some of the feedback from the comments. Hopefully that's big enough for you guys. So I think the scoring through the chaos is huge. He's got 4 rushing TDs in 5 games, like I said. The offense has been totally lost, but he's still punching in any goal line touchdown that's available. Week 4, the Ravens only ran the ball 17 times. He still had 58 yards on 10 touches. So the script is really what has been limiting things. And the noise in general, I think, makes this a buy window. He's lost some fumbles this year. He definitely has proven that he can bounce back from those situations, but the ceiling check is really what people are worried about. And we saw that back in week 1. It's not like we haven't seen the ceiling at all this year. So to me, the question that we have to ask ourselves is what if the RB23 with the pretty elite efficiency per touch metrics and already has 4 touchdowns this year is available? He seems like a decent swing for me, especially once Lamar gets back. If you can afford to trade for Derrick Henry, he's definitely a really solid target. Since we're always talking about making picks, I'm teaming up with DraftKings Pick 6 to give new DraftKings customers a deal that you won't want to miss for week 6. When you play $5 or more on your first paid Pick 6 entry, you'll get $50 in bonus picks instantly. That's right, play $5, get $50 in bonus picks to keep building your slips and take your shot at big payouts. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, sign up using my promo code HOLKA, and start playing today. If you've been thinking about trying Pick 6, now's the time to get in. Just use my code HOLKA to sign up, and all new DraftKings customers can play $5, get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Let's build some slips. James Cook as well. This one might be a little bit tougher because he really only has had one big down week, but he's the RB4 through 5 weeks. He's got the volume. He's got the production. The touchdowns have still continued to come. The regression monster has not come for James Cook just yet. He's 3rd in carries, 2nd in rushing yards. He has very bankable weekly touches, and that's been the positive this year. Is his usage has been very strong. So he hasn't just needed the touchdowns to get there. He's 4th in red zone touches though, 7th in true yards per carry, and the role and the efficiency are a great match in this offense. So the week 5 dip is really just a buying window. The role hasn't changed at all. If you can get this guy, or maybe it's an owner that has been struggling to get wins, I think he's a decent guy to trade for. Just in general, when Buffalo leads, they really lean on Cook. And I think that just his touchdown upside in general, also being used a little bit more in the passing game, is really nice. So a perfect buy low spot if it's a struggling manager. I think you can add James Cook now and feel really good about his ceiling going forward. If Buffalo controls game script, then yeah, I think that they're gonna run really heavily through Cook. Woody Marks. Woody Marks is, I think, one of the better buys in fantasy in general right now. So you're getting the efficiency, and I think you can buy him at a buy low situation right now. 16th in receiving yards, and just 43rd on opportunity share. So top 10 in per touches this year, 8th in yards per touch, 7th in yards created per touch. Bankable juice that is going to scale with snaps. I think we can't overreact to week 5. So everyone has been just destroying this Ravens defense, right? They didn't really need to use the ground game that much in this game. Obviously, Nick Chubb steals a touchdown, not ideal, but it's one of those situations where as soon as this starts to tilt back his way and the volume gets there, we already have the efficiency. So I think week 5 is kind of the cover that we needed to try and trade for Woody Marks if you missed him on the waiver wire. And the profile to me just screams like an ascending flex with RB2 upside once the snaps and target share normalizes a little bit. So I'd be trading for Woody Marks. Jaylen Warren, we talked about him earlier. Week 3, 18 rushes, 5 catches, led the Steelers in targets, yards, catches, outcarried Gainwell 18-4. That's a feature back. I think he's worth buying. I think that one of these, like once he's back healthy, Gainwell is going to go right back to the role that he had before. And really the passing game leverage has been kind of like a hidden ceiling for this guy. He's 8th in receiving yards despite a bye and a missed game. Bankable PPR juice is what we're always looking for with these guys. 2nd in yards per reception. So when he gets the targets, the gains have been pretty explosive. Rodgers has been turning these running backs into PPR monsters for years now. And he basically has said that he wants to get Warren more involved in the passing game. And then in week 3, he basically did exactly that. Led the team in targets, catches, and yards. So I think we still have some clarity here. I think the game script in general is one that he can continue to ride. I don't think Caleb Johnson is completely gone. Maybe him and Gainwell gives battle for some of the cleanup duty there, but I'm not really worried about either of those guys taking much from Warren the rest of the way. So I think this is probably the last like cheap week to buy Jaylen Warren and really just capture some of that feature usage that we've already seen. So he's a buy, and he's someone that you can probably get cheaper. I guess this is a guy that's more valuable than people may realize, I guess is my point. Kenneth Walker. The story as old as time with Kenneth Walker is that he's explosive on somewhat limited touches, right? Only 10 carries, but 86 yards in week 5. Charbonnet continues to take some of the short yardage stuff, 9 for 36 and 1. So Kenneth Walker still led the backfield in rushing yards, but really what we're looking at is some of the efficiency stuff, the top end elusiveness, 5th in juke rate, 8th in evaded tackles. He creates yards even without bell cow volume. So if he does get more volume, or if Charbonnet gets banged up, the role is already relatively stable. But if he can get a little bit more usage, and he's been still getting some of the usage in the passing game, the offense is really just heating up under Kubiak. So again, another one of the L's that I can take is that Sam Darnold has looked great this year. I was a little bit worried about this offensive line, but Darnold's been the real deal, and it's really just been Jackson Smith-Njigba that has kind of elevated this entire offense. Jackson Smith-Njigba is putting up historical yards per route numbers right now. So the offense is coming together under Kubiak. This zone run, motion, play action scheme that they have is really friendly for efficient running backs, just like Kenneth Walker. So he's a guy that I'm trading for right now. I think that if you can get him before week 6, he's 5th in juke rate, 8th in evaded tackles. The efficiency stuff really just like screams to me that there's more ceiling here than people may realize. And again, we're trying to capture players at a strong value. And yeah, he's had some good games, but like what we could get for him right now, or what we could trade for, I think is undervalued. So those are the running backs: Kenneth Walker that I'm trading for, Jaylen Warren, Woody Marks, James Cook, and Derrick Henry. We got some flashy names on the running back list this week. Wide receivers, we got 5 of them for you today. First one, Chris Godwin. 10 targets in his debut. So the role is real. Again, another one of these situations where I wasn't sure what we would get when he came back from injury. They paid this guy, so they're going to use him, is what we've seen, right? So 10 targets, immediate proof that the role is there. It's not speculative at this point. So tied for the team lead in looks despite that long layoff. He's been rehabbing since last October's ankle injury. So it seems like there is going to be some ceiling here because realistically, the efficiency kind of rebounded in week 5 as well. So the catch rate jumped from 30% in week 4 to 75% in week 5. And the timing seems to be coming back a little bit with Baker. So nice to see him super involved. Tampa Bay won in a massive shootout. The efficiency ticked up. All of those things are good. Evans will be coming back. So I think there's like a near-term opportunity here to grab him. If Godwin's kind of locked into that starting lineup, maybe we see Egbuka move to like maybe more of an outside role. He can win on the outside. I know like the scouting report coming in was that he was like only a slot guy. We've seen already that he can win anywhere on the field. So I actually don't think this hurts Egbuka a ton. Mike Evans coming back, both of them on the outside. This might just be a really efficient and exciting offense in kind of the near to midterm. So if weeks 4 to 5 were just kind of the on ramp for Chris Godwin, I think if you trade for him now before week 6, we've already kind of seen the volume signal. We've already seen the efficiency start to rebound a little bit. So it's kind of like a discounted buy with upside because you can play the Evans coming back thing, and San Francisco's up next. So I think the starting role is secure, and I think that's what matters for kind of near-term target volume for him. Speaking of target volume, A.J. Brown. So basically everyone and their mother has been talking about A.J. Brown, how unhappy he is. Alpha usage, though, just hasn't really had the big box score performances yet. So he was first in first read target share. Basically, he's designed the read even in like kind of a run first script right now. He's 18th in total targets through 5 weeks. The volume has been kind of capped by this offense, but that's really how you're going to get him anyway, as a little bit of a buy low. You're never going to buy low on this guy's talent, right? Philly opened the season really run heavy, which is kind of like suppressed the wide receiver counting stats in general across the first couple of weeks, but the volume is quietly climbing. 27 targets over the last 3 weeks. The usage has spiked, even though the box score has kind of lagged a little bit. So really, realistically, I think he's still a guy that when the passing attempts have increased, right? So like the Rams game comes to mind, 32 pass attempts in that game. Brown immediately goes off for 6, 109, and 1. So he's a guy that, again, like it was a tough matchup in week 5. Denver's secondary is extremely strong, but still, I think that the perception is down right now. The role is ticking up, though, if people haven't realized it. So just 1 touchdown this season, and then really just 1 game over 43 yards. So the price is compressed, but the alpha usage and the volume has been intact and ticking up. So if we can kind of lean into the frustration for this owner, it's possible that whoever drafted A.J. Brown is struggling a little bit. He seems like a really nice target. Speaking of nice targets, Lad McConkey. This guy is going to be the death of me. I can't quit Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey. So first reads, he's just been an absolute first read magnet, regardless of what has been happening this year. 11th in first read targets, bankable priority every single week for the Chargers. Obviously, what's going on in their run game, we could see them skew even more pass heavy. Right now, the Chargers are the 3rd in pass plays per game, so there's already a ton there. 6.8 targets per game through 5 weeks. The volume floor has been there, even though we haven't seen the crazy explosion. A near miss touchdown as well, and also had a punt return TD wiped out by a penalty already, so almost had a 2-score day. Only Keenan Allen had more targets than McConkey in week 5, so the role has stayed intact. He's getting open. The volume's been there. 13th in target separation, so he's winning routes, and Herbert hit 47 attempts in week 3. So realistically, I think he's been just overshadowed a little bit with how well Quentin Johnston has played so far, and I guess Keenan Allen as well. But I think still stacking opportunities, 21 targets through 3 weeks, 6.8 per game overall. I think this is one of the last weeks you'd be able to buy him cheap and really just lean into what this offense is going to be forced to do. They're going to be forced to pass a lot over the next little while. And I think if you can trade before week 6, the role and the usage are already there. The perception lag is kind of the edge right now, and that is one of those things that won't be there much longer, right? We got 2 more guys. Jameson Williams. So he's got that elite deep threat role, real efficiency. It just feels like one of these guys. I know we've talked about him a couple times now, but 2nd in deep target share after 5 weeks. You get basically weekly access to those chunk gains for wide receivers, and we don't always get those type of usage numbers in general. He leads the NFL in yards per catch at 20.3. Every target carries spike week, field tilting upside, in my opinion. So he's 6th in route participation, 11th in yards per target. He's on the field, and he's been productive when being used. The box score depth is really game script dependent, not role at this point. So I think he's a little bit of a hidden gem. He's got 4 or 5 games with less than 5 targets. Not ideal. But week 4, he led the team with 8. Goff kind of has taken the blame for some miscues that they've had down the field. So I think if they, basically the Lions have rattled off some decisive wins. Fewer attempts can temporarily kind of cap target totals for guys like this. And I think they're, with the new coordinator, they're still trying to basically figure out ways to get the ball into his hands with it not just being downfield carries. So the explosive proof, we know it's there. He's also 3rd in unrealized air yards at this time. So there's been some misses. There's been some production that they've left on the field. And he's been averaging 21.8 yards per reception. That's a crazy number. So what happens if like those air yards finally start to hit, or they start to give him some more layup touches down the road? So I like him quite a bit as a buy low at this moment. Again, another one of those guys where this type of ceiling isn't typically available on the cheap. This would be a target for me for some teams that are struggling as well. Jerry Jeudy. It's interesting, right? Because Jerry Jeudy just loses his quarterback. Not that Flacco's been that great this year, but he has an every down role, bankable volume, second most routes in the entire NFL through 5 weeks, 8 to 9 targets in 3 of 4 games. The usage is there despite the quarterback situation. He's the number one wide receiver in this offense. He's got downfield intent. The production has been good. 5th in deep targets. That's a really high value target share. And in week 4, under 50% of the completions for the quarterback situation, but Jeudy still paced in targets, volumes, and honestly, inefficiency so far. So London, 2 for 15, while Njoku and Bond out-targeted him. Kind of noisy. I mean, the travel, the looking at these London games, the overseas games, some things get kind of janky at times. So I think that with this quarterback switch, we actually saw a little bit of an efficiency spike. So Dylan Gabriel went 19 for 23, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. So the accuracy bump is actually kind of something that benefits Jeudy right away. So if that completion rate kind of turns Judy's way on deep looks as well, we might see more of those chunk gains. And I think if we get those elite routes, more deep targets, and we get just a little bit better efficiency at quarterback, he's the guy that you can trade for now, and it looks pretty good in a couple weeks. That's it for today. Remember, the next 2 videos, I'm going to plow through all my rest of season rankings questions, trade questions, and some start sits for week 6. So subscribe and drop your questions below now.